Alright, here we are in InDesign. InDesign is a page layout program, one that is used primarily for magazines, newspapers, anything where you're taking multiple pages, putting it together, including flyers, brochures, and things like that. And what we're doing is our magazine cover in here with our portrait, so we're going to work on the pieces that directly affect that today. So, first thing you need to do is take a quick look at your workspace. The workspace has the toolbox on the left, the panels on the right, the options across the top, very much like Photoshop, like Illustrator. It's an Adobe product. They all have the basic layout the same. It's the tools change up a little bit. However, you already know how to use some of these tools, like the type tool, shape tool, pencil tool, gradient tool, and hand tools, moving the fill and stroke for foreground, background. So you already know how to use some of these things. It's just seeing the slight differences in the application for InDesign. So we're going to go ahead, go File, New, and choose Document. And with that new document, this is very important to make sure that you do get set right. You are most likely in Picas, which is fine because I'll show you how to change that in just a moment. But we need to take a look starting at the top. Document preset default is fine for what we are doing today. Our intent is print because a magazine is typically print. And we only are going to want one page, and we can start with page 1. We are working in letter size, so you want to make sure that you leave that alone, which this is what letter looks like when you are measuring in Picas. We are only going to have one column, which means that it doesn't really have any columns. And our margins, I'm actually going to take down to 1 Pica 6, because that would be about 1/2 inch. And if you notice that there is the little link activated, so when you do that on 1, it changes on the rest. Your bleed and slug have to deal with what is actually running off of the page. Since we are just printing on letter size paper and we're not cutting back, we don't need to worry about our bleed right now or our slug, and we can go ahead and just hit OK. When we hit OK, here we have our new document. And just like in Photoshop, just like in Illustrator, you can go File and Place. And just to help us out, I'm going to go File, Place. And I'm going to go ahead and choose, of course, our portrait. And you have to remember, I'm currently running 3 major Adobe products, so sometimes it gets a little slow. As you can see, we are waiting for the computer to catch up, and eventually it will catch up. In the meantime, you've got your rulers, top and side. Your top and side rulers can be independently changed in what unit they measure in, just with a right click and change it, or edit preferences and go to the units. So that is an option. This is another one of the programs, just like Illustrator. You have to draw something in order to fill it. If you don't draw a shape, you cannot fill it. So you cannot have a background color without creating a shape to fill with that background color. And once you do that, you still have the similar options like with Illustrator, where you have stroke changes, the color, the stroke thickness, the fill being a gradient or solid. You can also place images very easily into this program, and that is one of the things that we are doing. Is just running a little bit behind with being so slow here. And as you can see here, I have now finally gotten to the point where I can place my image, and you can see it actually gives me a little preview of what my image is. And if you click, hold, and drag, it will place it in the size of the box that you click, hold, and drag. If you just click, which is what I'm actually going to do right now, it places it in the actual size that it is. We can then still resize, but for now we're going to stick with what we have, and I'm going to just kind of place it in the center here. So now we have an image that is the beginning of what we're going to create for our magazine. I will let you know, a little heads up, you're going to be creating a rough draft, a hand-drawn rough draft for this layout. So what you're going to make sure of is by placing this in, you can kind of see how you're going to look on that page before you do it. But I can tell you with the type tool, we're going to go on up here and we're going to go ahead and start thinking, what might this magazine be called? And I'm going to call it Crazy Toddlers because that is what I have a picture of. And you can see here when I typed, it kind of looks small. If you're zoomed even farther out, it gets to be a gray line, so don't panic. All you have to do is zoom in. And you can edit your text just like in any of the rest of the programs. I'm going to highlight it, and up at the top, I am currently in the type options in my options bar. I'm in the actual paragraph formatting controls. I can center it up real quick, and then when I pop on over to the character formatting, the little A, I can then go and change my sizes. Again, the sizing on your options bar is not what you're limited to. It is just what's the default. You can type in whatever you want. For what we're doing, 72 might work, might not, just depends on your title. But then you have all of your different fonts, and this is one of those times where maybe you're going to want to download some fonts, and that's fine. You have all your colors, so up here you can go and change your color, and when I let go you can see kind of how that's starting to come together. So before we go much farther, you want to make sure that you have kind of played with the type tool, seen how your image looks. A little shortcut, double click the hand, and when you double click the hand in the toolbox, your image will automatically resize to fit into the viewing pane here. Again, we can right click, and I'm going to flip to inches just because I know you guys are a little more familiar with inches right now. You can click and drag out your ruler guides, having it be a mid-ruler guide, things like that, so you know for your layout. But part of the requirements, having that rough draft, but now you kind of see where your image will look, what you look like on the page. If you want to resize, you'll need a title, you'll need at least 5 sub-article little headings, and we'll go over a little more of those details in class. So have fun figuring out what your magazine is going to look like, and make sure that you are not afraid to play with some of these settings, especially since you really kind of know how to use a lot of them. It's just some of the fine-tuned ones for InDesign for magazine cover that we'll continue to review. All right, have some fun, and I look forward to seeing your rough drafts.